Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories. First, just if I might correct a misperception, I don't think we ever said, at least I know I didn't say, that there was a direct connection between September the 11th and Saddam Hussein. We did say Saddam Hussein aids and protects terrorists, including members of Al-Qaeda. Secretly and without fingerprints, he could provide one of his hidden weapons to terrorists or help them develop their own. Before September the 11th, many in the world believed that Saddam Hussein could be contained.
I think if you want to be a serious candidate, I think you got to say serious things, and you can't sound like Ron Paul, who is still on national television talking about a trans-international highway that some secret forces are planning between Mexico and Canada that is a figment of his imagination.
This is an ideological battle. Some people believe in globalism, others of us believe in national sovereignty. And there is a move on toward a North American Union, just like early on there was a move on for a European Union, and it eventually ended up. So we had NAFTA and moving forward a NAFTA highway. These are real things. It's not somebody made these up. It's not a conspiracy. They don't talk about it, and they might not admit about it, but there's been money spent on it. There was legislation passed in the Texas legislature unanimously to put a hold on it. They're planning on millions of acres taken by eminent domain for an international highway from Mexico to Canada, which is going to make the immigration problem that much worse.
You know, I've heard all the rhetoric, and you've heard it too, about how this is amnesty. Amnesty means that you've got to pay, you know, a price for having been here illegally, and this bill does that.
This president is not representing the interests of the American people when it comes to immigration. He has he thinks that it will be good for our country. I have no doubt. I'm not questioning his patriotism. I'm sure, no doubt, he believes that opening up some sort of borderless region on the North American continent between Mexico, the United States, and Canada will in some way benefit us, because we'll have cheaper labor, we'll have natural resources, we will be able to withstand any competition. I'm sure that he thinks that's what's best for the United States.
What you need is a little bit of solidarity, a little bit of human attitude of working together as a team.
Would you like to see a North American Union? So what's your team? You'd go with Mexico,
long-term, yes,
U.S.,
partners.
Canada?
The combining of national governments started with the European Union. That union started with trade agreements, then a common currency, the euro, and now a European Parliament that is feverishly passing laws that override the laws of the member nations. Now it's North America's turn. Building on the North American Free Trade Agreement, the NAFTA section of the Commerce Department is busy drafting laws and regulations for a North American Union, a union of Canada, America, and Mexico.
I want to switch gears, talk about this other issue that's out there, the creation of a new North American Union, if you will, similar to the EU, the European Union. The president was asked about this today at the summit meeting with the leaders of Mexico and Canada. Listen to what he said.
I'm amused by the difference between what actually takes place in the meetings and what some are trying to say takes place. It's quite comical, actually, when you realize the difference between reality and what some people are talking on TV about.
All right, well, what is the background? What's going on?
This won't be another treaty that will have to be approved by the various parliaments or elected bodies of the government?
Precisely, and it's actually been designed that way, and various declassified documents from the SPP meetings over the last couple of years have specifically said that the time is not right for another big public debate, and this should be done by stealth.
You don't make decisions like that as an individual. You vent them through the democratic process. And I think that this idea of having open borders with Mexico would destroy the United States of America as we know.
Representatives of the United States, Canada, and Mexico preparing for a summer meeting to further the goals of the Security and Prosperity Partnership of North America, the SPP, which many consider to be simply a blueprint for the North American Union, would weaken U.S. laws and regulations and diminish American sovereignty. Kitty Pilgrim has our report.
President Bush, former Mexican President Vicente Fox, and former Canadian Prime Minister Paul Martin conceived the Security and Prosperity Partnership between the three countries in 2005. A summit is scheduled in Canada later this summer to flesh out more details, but current information on any agreements is scarce.
The Security and Prosperity Partnership will deliver neither security nor prosperity for the simple reason that it's not so far been democratic. Most of the discussions have taken place behind closed doors.
Just can't get away from everybody talking about this NAFTA superhighway. Yeah, nobody's talking about it. It's a giant roadway that will run across the United States connecting Canada and Mexico. Why is no one talking about it? Because no one will admit to it. It's only crazy people like me that have even mentioned it, dare mention it on the air.
The President has attended secret meetings and signed at least 2 agreements under the Security and Prosperity Partnership Program. Information leaked out about the meetings, and now it is all in the open. No treaty has been signed, so Congress has not become involved. However, money from our Treasury is now being spent for this effort. We will have a new currency, the Amero, and a new constitution.
Email from Mrs. Gonzalez in Elizabeth, New Jersey. Mr. Fox, I'd like to know how you feel about the possibility of having a Latin America united with one currency.
Long term, very long term. What we propose together, President Bush and myself, it's ALCA, which is a trade union for all of the Americas.
I think one thing people who are dollar-based need to focus on is the Amero. That's the one thing that nobody's talking about, but I think it's going to have a big impact on everybody's life in Canada, the U.S., and Mexico. If you Google it, you'll find out all about it.
Well, you could tell us a little bit more right now.
You always hear it on CNBC, don't you? The Amero is the proposed new currency for the North American community, which is being developed right now between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico to make a borderless community, much like the EU, and the dollar, Canadian dollar, U.S. dollar, and the Mexican peso replaced by the Amero.
You really think that will get any leeway?
You may want to visit a couple of websites and see how far along it is. The Canadians are pretty upset about it, whereas the Americans, apart from the Texans, are the only people who know anything about it. The rest of the public's really sort of with their head in the sand on this one.
Everyone will say, no, this isn't happening, but they won't deny the pieces of it. It's exactly like what they did with the amnesty bill. They couldn't get it through in one big bill, so they're breaking up like the DREAM Act, and they're putting it in piece by piece. Am I wrong?
You're exactly right. It's a play on words. I had the opportunity to ask the Secretary of Transportation some questions before the Transportation Appropriations Subcommittee in the U.S. House. I believe she used the word NAFTA-related highways and highways that would increase our trade with Mexico and other countries south of our border. But I define it as a NAFTA superhighway, and NAFTA really, when it began back in the early 90s, it dreamed this, and those dreams are back to become a reality.
Plans for an integrated North American community by 2010, moving ahead swiftly and under the radar. Robert Pastor is an author of the Council on Foreign Relations document seen as the project's roadmap.
We need to deepen economic integration by moving towards a customs union with a common external tariff. I think we need to enhance our security by beefing up both our borders and beefing up a continental boundary.
But critics fear an attack on American sovereignty, a super NAFTA with borders erased between 3 very different countries with no public oversight. Texas Congressman Ron Paul is a rare voice of concern on Capitol Hill.
We're not supposed to give this to the executive branch devising quasi-type of treaties that the Congress seems to not have any control of, and then it turns out to be managed trade for big corporations and not to benefit to our workers and to our people.
A trans-international highway that some secret forces are planning between Mexico and Canada that is a figment of his imagination.
It's not so much as a sinister conspiracy, it's just knowledge is out there. If we look for it, you'll realize that our national sovereignty is under threat.